Okay, so in this next tutorial, we're going to begin by looking at the transport options in the preferences section. The first section is our pitch fader range. This is where you can select the pitch range that you want Traktor to use. So you can go between plus or minus 8% all the way up to plus or minus 100%. I would typically use plus or minus 8% as it most closely resembles the pitch range on a traditional turntable. Down here it shows you the current pitch range for each of your decks A, B, C and D, and if you want to increase or decrease the pitch bend sensitivity, you can do that here by moving this slider to the right to increase sensitivity or to the left to decrease sensitivity. Down here then we have our key lock options. For those of you running a computer with a slower processor, you might be wise choosing the economy mode here, or if you've got quite a powerful high-speed processor, you can use the high quality mode there. It really depends on your system. Loops then, this auto detect size means that any tracks with a length, in this case shorter than 10 seconds, will automatically be looped by Traktor. Now this is really handy if you've set up loop playlists, as Traktor will automatically loop up these tracks when you load them, anything shorter than 10 seconds. If you are using longer loops, you can increase the loop detect size here. So in this case, anything that is 60 seconds or less, Traktor will say that's a loop, and it will automatically loop it when you load it into the deck. So it's really handy feature to have on there. Play count then. My play count, as you can see, is currently set to 10 seconds. This means that I can play 10 seconds of a track before Traktor adds that track to my history playlist. It adds a check mark icon to it and it raises its play count. Now, if you want to increase the play count time, you can do it here. So this means that I can play 60 seconds now of a track before Traktor will add that track to my history and increase the play count and add a play count tick marker to it. So you can set your own time there up to your own individual preference. Beat counter then, this is where you can define how many bars a phrase shall contain. So a bar has 4 beats, and this setting directly influences an option that we'll look at later on in the deck details section of preferences. Mouse control then. If you select mouse control in vinyl mode, this will allow you to drag your waveform of your track back and forth, almost like scratching. But if you choose snap mode, the mouse will always snap on the beat of the loaded track. Then cue play cup mode here. If we go into instant mode, playback starts whenever we push cup, or if we go on release, playback will begin anytime we release the cup mode or cue mode buttons. So you can just change it around again, whatever one that you prefer. Have a play around with them, see which one that you like best. So the next option we look at is the mixer. Looking at the EQ then up here at the very top, we have 4 different types of EQ that we can actually choose from. So the first one here is the classic 3-band EQ. Then we can choose from a Pioneer DJM 600 EQ emulator. You have a Neo Eckler Neo 4 emulator there, and an X192 EQ there. I like the X192 EQ because it's a 4-band EQ, whereas the rest of them are 3, so it gives you that much control. So, but again, it depends on your own personal preferences. You might like a 3-band EQ, you may prefer a 4-band EQ. Have a mess around with them, see what you think, see which sound that you like. We also have 2 different types of filter selection here as well. So we have a ladder filter and an X1 filter. Again, both of these have slightly different characteristics. I prefer the X1 as I'm used to using the X1 mixer, but again, play around with them, see which one that you like the best and what one sounds best to you. Auto crossfade time then, this sets the amount of time it'll take an auto crossfade to perform, which is handy if you're using cruise mode for automatic playback. You can increase or decrease the length of time it takes. And then smooth and sharp beneath that will simply adjust the crossfader curve depending on the type of fade you want. If you want it to go really sharp, just select sharp, and smooth, just select smooth. Then for a smoother transition. Level then beneath that, it's worth having these two options checked. If you tick set auto gain, Traktor will set the gain value for you, so it's very handy, and Traktor's very good at calculating the precise gain adjustment needed, so it's worth selecting this so you don't have to adjust any gains yourself on the fly. And then enable master limiter, again it's worth having this option selected to prevent any clipping through your master output volume being too high. So that's the mixer. Let's look at effects then. In Traktor you can route all effects either as insert effects or as send effects. In insert mode, the dry wet controls are controlled using the software, which is these dry wet buttons here. But if you are using send mode, you would typically use this in conjunction with an external mixer with a send and return channel, and again using your sound card. You can set up a send channel through the output routing section of preferences as well. Down here you can select between 2 effects units or 4 effects units. So you can see there we've just doubled the amount of effects units we have on the screen. It's very, very handy. And this option here will restore the parameters when switching effects. So if you are messing around with effects and you've set them a particular way, the next time you come back to that, it'll have restored to the defaults effects parameter. Effects panel mode then, this is where we choose whether we want grouped or chained effects, where we can have 3 effects per channel, or whether we want advanced effects, which gives us a more detailed control over the individual effects. So it's sometimes nice to use a mixture of both, maybe have an advanced effects on deck A and chained effects on deck B. It's up to yourself, but you can mess around there with the different setups. Right, down here, effects pre-selection. Traktor has so many effects, a lot of which you may not use or you may not like, so it's entirely up to yourself what effects you do and you don't use. If you want to get rid of those effects that you don't use, so you're not looking at them in your drop down menus, this is where you can remove any unwanted effects. So now they're not being removed forever, they're just taken out of the drop down. So I'm going to remove this, I'm going to remove this, I'm going to remove this. And also you can change the order. So if I want turntable effects to appear first and I want beat masher to appear second in my drop down menu, you'll see here turntable effects and beat masher. So it just what it means that it removes any unwanted effects from these drop downs, and it means you'll be able to find the effects that you do use the most that bit quicker. And of course if you decide then that you want to add them back in, you can do so just by clicking add, just like that. Okay, so the next section we look at then is recording. If you want to record internally using Traktor's internal mixer, you just select internal mode there. If you are going to record externally, for example from an external mixer, just choose external and then select the channel you want to record the input from on your sound card in this drop down here. Under file, this is where we select the directory where our recordings are going to be saved. So there is a default location. If you want to change that, you can do that very, very easily. And also this prefix will set a prefix at the front of all our files, all the recordings that we have saved. So, you know, it's something memorable. I have in this case track rec, so every file or recording that I make on Traktor will be prefixed with track rec. This split file its size, this is very, very handy. You can automatically set Traktor up so it'll split files automatically during a recording once a certain file size has been reached. I would typically use 700 meg here because 700 meg will typically equate to an hour's worth of wave recording time. So Traktor will automatically split roughly every hour or on 700 meg. You can make this longer or shorter using this drop down here as well. Okay, so next up we're going to look at the broadcasting now. Broadcasting menu, I'm not going to go into detail on this as you do need some third-party software to use this functionality and to show you where to input the different options. It's maybe something we'll look at in a more advanced tutorial, but if you do want to broadcast your set over the internet, this is where you configure the settings to do this. For example, your file format, your metadata and all that kind of thing. It's really cool functionality, but best looked at in a more advanced tutorial. The next thing that we'll look in more detail at is file management. So anything relating to the management of your music files is accessed through here. First up, import music folders at startup. If this is selected, Traktor will auto scan your music folders for new music every time it loads up, and it'll automatically add them to your library. Determine track time automatically. With this option selected, Traktor estimates the track time before it analyzes your track. The next two options you will probably want to have checked, as they tell Traktor to analyze a track when it's either loaded into your library or when it's loaded into a deck, so it'll analyze them automatically then. And then consistency check report on startup. I would have this checked. I spoke about this in an earlier tutorial, but it's worth selecting, as every time you load up Traktor, a report will pop up telling you if any tracks have gone missing or if any tracks need analyzing. It's a wee bit of a safety device that is there to prevent those occasions when you've arrived at the club with your playlist full of music and you switch on Traktor and suddenly your music isn't there. This consistency check report will show you if any tracks have gone missing and help you locate them and get them back to where they should be. Down here then we have file structure mode. This is really just with reference to exporting playlists and how you want those playlists to be exported. So if you want to keep the file names as they are, you just select none. If you want to select to export your playlist in the format of track number, artist, title, that kind of thing, you select flat. And the final two options will create subfolders with either artist name or label name, depending on what you've selected there. BPM detection range. This is where you can tell Traktor the minimum maximum BPM values of your tracks, which helps it analyze your music for the correct BPM. So it's advisable to keep the range between minimum and maximum quite small, and also avoid making the maximum BPM double your minimum BPM. So what I mean is, avoid making your minimum, for example, 70 BPM and your maximum, for example, 140 BPM. 70 and 139 BPM is fine, but not 70 and 140. Set beat grid when detecting BPM. Yes, you probably want this selected because you'll want Traktor to automatically set a beat grid marker for you every time it has detected BPM. Editing then, allow inline editing in list window. If you have this selected, it just means that you can go in to the list window here and edit any of the fields that you want just by double clicking on the fields. So it's handy to have that selected. Then data location. The root directory here, this is where all our collection, playlist, settings, history and mapping files are stored. So that's the default location there. If you want to store them somewhere else, you can change them on your hard drive and tell Traktor where to look for them by using this drop down here, or you can restore them to the default here. iTunes music library. If you want to use the iTunes integration, Traktor needs to know where your iTunes library is. It has its default location here, but if you have changed your iTunes library and it's not in the default iTunes location, you can select the location of it by clicking on that button. Music folders then, this is where we can select any other music folders we want Traktor to automatically load in tracks from. So I'm currently loading in music from my music folder and my Traktor music folder. If I want to add another folder, I click here and navigate to the location. If I want to remove one of those folders, I just click delete. Okay, so in our next tutorial we look at the last few remaining options in our preferences section.